Hey, fight fans, welcome back to Carl Cruz MMA. Today we got a special guest for you. My guest is in action. He's taking on Carlton Minus Fury FC 103 going down March 23rd. He is Mr. Kolton Englund. Kolton, how are you doing, my friend? How are you enjoying Fight Week?
I'm good, man. Fight week is always a struggle, but we got it. We're going through good. We're going through good with everything, Everything's good, weight's perfect. Training has been perfect. Body feels great right now.
You know, for you, when you go into fight weeks, at what point of the week do you really start feeling it?
Probably 2 days before the fight. I mean, before weigh-ins. 2 days before I'll really start feeling like, the weight coming down and stuff. But, you shouldn't be doing any hard trainings at that moment anyways.
You know, you've been doing this for quite a long time, and I really get excited when I get to interview fighters who've been doing this for a while because a lot of fans don't realize 20, 25 years ago, people were calling MMA human cockfighting. It wasn't accepted like it is today. It wasn't legal everywhere. When you first started getting into it, do you have any stories of maybe fighting in bars, barns, mystery opponents, anything crazy or fun?
I do. Before I even fought amateur, I fought at a smoker, which was at a biker rally, and there was a bunch of girls with their shirts off, so the way that they matched us up, they put us in a circle, they put all the fighters together, and everybody had hoodies. It was cold outside. No one knew no one's size, and they says, "Okay, you and you look about the same size. Y'all are gonna fight each other. I don't care about experience. Y'all just look about the same size, and then y'all fight each other." So that's how my first fight went, and ended up beating the guy up pretty bad because he was a lot smaller than me too.
You know, when you first started getting into this, did you envision that this sport would blow up to what it is today?
Never, man. This is really cool. How you got kids that are 3, 4 years old, and they're programming their life to be world champions, and I train a couple of them, and I mean they're just out of this world good. I'm like, man, I hope I'm not around when I have to fight you, and they're like, yeah, and I was like, but I'll still whoop you.
You know, one thing with you really see that you've really developed into a very complete mixed martial artist. Obviously, you know, you have a very dangerous striking ability. You put a lot of finishes with your hands, but you also gotten some submissions and some victories on the ground. At what point in the career did you really start thinking, you know, if I want to make a run to the biggest shows, that I need to be as well rounded as possible?
Yeah, whenever I first started MMA, whenever I was 15, I would always, I watched UFC, and I really paid attention to the really high level fighters. And, I had like, I stayed with Tito Ortiz at his house for a little while, and I got really, really good information on how to train. He says, you need to have wrestling, you need to have jiu-jitsu, you need to be able to fight on the fence, you need to be able to box, you got to be able to kickbox, you got to be able to defend, you got to be an escape artist. And there's a bunch of stuff. And from talking to, like, for instance, like Tito, or like Benson Henderson and those types of guys, I was able to create the best version of myself, and I didn't leave anything out when I trained. I hated jujitsu, absolutely hated it, and until I was about a brown belt, and then I was like, hey, I'm actually pretty good at this now, so now I like it.
No, we talked already a little bit of how big this sport has really blown up. I mean, there's fights literally. If you want to watch a regional fight, you can do it now 4 out of the 7 days a week. I mean, it's absolutely insane. And one thing that I really start is seeing, obviously, you know, the competition has risen exponentially, but I'm also seeing a takeover for personality and entertainment. There's guys now who put on characters. They're straight up people they're not because they know it can help them get the UFC, can help them get title shots. You know exactly what I'm talking about. How do you
Mhm.
feel personality and entertainment has affected mixed martial arts?
Man, it's enormous. Conor McGregor came through and blew it up. And now everybody's trying to do little knockoffs of Conor, but it's great. It's entertainment. Fighting isn't just fighting; it's entertainment too. People want to see a crazy walkout. Like I went down to Japan for Risen, and they walking out. They're dancing. They're doing all kinds of stuff, and I was like, man, this is crazy. I almost wanted to watch the walkouts more than the fights. So it does play a huge part, and you gotta be an absolute savage to get to the level of popularity of a Connor, or like a let's say a let's say that like a Islam. You gotta be a character, or you gotta be an absolute savage. So it's one or the other. You're not gonna make it any other way. So, you know, there's been times whenever I get the mic, and I'm a goofy person. I like to joke around in training. All of my coaches and my teammates will say the same thing. I'm always joking around, but whenever I get the mic and I see all the cameras on me, I'm like, okay, Colton, behave yourself. I don't want everyone to know how I really act.
I think a big byproduct that we see from this whole entertainment and personality driven era is a term we all use called the casual fan. So these people are awesome, right? They're usually at B dubs. They're drunk. They think they know everything about fighting. They like to yell twist them and the you know what, probably go in
Yep.
your inbox and create all this havoc. Overall, what do we think of these group of fans?
Man, I play into them. Like the other day I was at a bar, and some guy was like, "Hey, do you do that MMA stuff?" And I told him, I said, "No, man, I have no idea. What's that MMA stuff?" And he's like, "Yeah." He said, "You're lying. You got cauliflower ears." And I was like, "Me? No. What's the cauliflower?" And he was like, "Man, you're playing stupid." And he was drunk, obviously, and he was like, I've had a bunch of fights, and I was like, oh wow, man, like you actually fight. I've played completely dumb, and I was like, I was born like this. You know, it's a birth defect. And he was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Uh, Let me buy you a beer. And I was like, no, I'm in fight camp. I can't drink a beer. And he was like, what? So it was real funny. I play into them. I mess with them. You got to know how to play with them, because they will challenge you. Like for instance, you got a bunch of dummies out there watching fights. Um, I was in when I fought in Brazil. I've just finished my opponent. I was walking out of the cage, and some guy threw a stack of cash at me, and he said, "Fight me now." And I was like, "Well, how much is this? Let's do it."
That's awesome. It's obviously great that so many fans are watching it. Obviously, allows for more opportunities, allows for more fighters to get paid, more fighters to have a dream and pursuing this. But I feel like the casual fans, they look at the McGregors, they look at the O'Malley's, they look at the Jorge Masvidals, and they're like, "Wow, being a fighter, greatest life ever. This is amazing." Little do they know, battling down the regional scene, man, we're losing money. Guys have that 9 to 5 job to fund it. Throw a wife in for some, throw kids in for some. Pay to train, have to miss birthdays, weddings, dinners, holidays, Thanksgivings. You've probably missed it. You've done this for so long. Wake up early, stay up late just for the opportunity to chase this dream and maybe fight on one of the big shows. Why have you been doing it for so long?
Yeah, you're very, very. You hit the nail on the head on that one. It's tough, and I've been blessed to have family that really supports me, that has helped me through the whole process. Um, I have a lot of really, really good coaches that really work with me. Man, it's tough. It's tough. You gotta just take it one day at a time. And if you look at the bigger picture, you're thinking, oh, here in 4 years I'm gonna get in the UFC. It overwhelms you, and then most people just quit. You have to take it day by day and just never quit. And yeah, you're gonna have ups and downs. I went through leukemia. I was right on the doorstep. Fighting in contenders, or gonna fight on Dana White, looking for a fight. I was the fight to watch, and my body shut down. So I got leukemia, and you think, man, I'm there. This is it. I just gotta finish this dude. I'm in. And then bam, pushed back probably another 6 or 7 years. So, you know, it makes you more tough. It makes, my mentality is so much different now than it was 7 years ago. And I almost, I have to thank God that I didn't get in at that time. And I'm going to get in now, because my head is just in a whole nother realm of how hard I am to kill.
You just obviously brought up your battle with leukemia. Overall, that whole journey, I mean, that was a battle and that was a fight in itself. Are there any takeaways from that whole experience? Do you think that's paying dividends to that nice winning streak that you're on right now?
Yeah, you can't take it too serious. You could be on a big, big this or big that, and tomorrow you're gone. You got to have fun. You got to enjoy yourself. I really enjoy training. I enjoy doing this now. I don't look at it like a job. I don't look at it like I have to go. I'm just like, man, I get to go, and I'm gonna train. I'm gonna go hit my friends, and we're gonna hang out and we're gonna tell jokes. And it's better than a 9 to 5 job. And so I'm like, okay, cool. Of course, fighting, you feel uncomfortable for a little bit, but I only got to do that 3 or 4 times a year, and then I have a lot of freedom to travel. I love to travel, so it really does. It has changed my mindset of, man, I don't hold grudges. If someone goes hard or whatever, let's do it. And then there's no grudges, no more grudges. I love everybody. Put it that way. I don't care if anybody says, oh, I don't like him. Oh, I like you, man. Just you get so just like passive. You don't hold anything in your heart anymore. Once a doctor has told you or a person has told you that you're probably gonna die tomorrow, you something chemically changes in your brain, and I don't think it changes in many people's brains until they're like 70, 80 years old, and then they're just already kind of like, all right, I'm ready to go. And then that's why grandmas and grandpas are so sweet, and everybody, they want to hug you and stuff. But I've already felt that at a young age, so I feel like it really matured me and put me in a mindset that I needed to be.
Do you have individuals hitting you up on social media who maybe, are fighting cancer or going through stuff like that?
Oh yeah, I've had a lot of people having battles all over the world. Other countries telling me that it helped them. How do I stay strong, and you know asking for advice, if anything, if I could give them any advice. And the advice that I gave them was just take it day by day, and enjoy, do something that you enjoy every single day. Don't take anything too seriously, because nobody actually gets out alive. But of course, you want to prolong your life as long as possible, but enjoy yourself. Don't get so caught up in the everyday things that everybody does, and the material things. Enjoy yourself. Have fun.
Do you think that the fight game is more mental than it is physical?
Very mental. Of course, physical plays a big role in it, but mental is huge. Uh, like, for instance, when I fight, it's kind of a dark thing to say, but when I fight, I'm ready to die. Uh, I'm ready to die or win, and that's my mindset when I'm walking in a cage. I've already been told I was gonna die, so I really just, it's either die or win. And for me, that's how serious I take it once I'm in the cage. Um, yeah, yeah, it's very, very, very mental.
You talked about obviously going to fight on looking for a fight, and a couple fights after that one. You got your opportunity on the Dana White Contender Series. Something that very few fighters will ever get to try to do, compete in. Where were you when you got the phone call that you're going to the Contender?
Man, I was at my gym. I would just finish training, and my manager had said, "Hey, we were actually going to a party," and the manager was like, "Hey, um, you got a Contender Series spot," and I was like, "Oh, sweet!" And so we went and we partied, and we celebrated it, and then I had the Contender Series fight, and it was such a letdown to me. It messed me up for a long time. I thought, man, this is my time. I was running through everybody. I thought this was my time. I'm gonna go up there and I'm gonna just dominate everybody. And I think I was a little too cocky. But then I went in there and I got eye gouged. And Herb was behind me. It's not his fault. He didn't see me. he didn't see the eye gouge. We clinched and then we were separating, and his finger went in and actually went through my eyelid, and they stitched my eyelid back. And the doctor was like, "Hey, did they? That's a nail?" And it was a upside down U. And I was like, "Yeah, I mean." And there was a lot of people saying, "Oh, he didn't get eye gouged," and I was like, "Yeah, I got eye gouged, dude." So
Obviously, since then you've been on quite a roll, looking for your sixth win. That loss, obviously, that stung. Some of the takeaways, are you using that as motivation and fuel to burn the current fire that you're on right now?
no, it's like I said, I held that really heavy to myself for a long time, and man, it messed me up, and I was just angry. But I've completely let it go. It's it just happens. I believe you gotta give and take on things that happen in your life. You gotta say you can control the only things that you can control, you control. Um, for instance, something like that where everything was lined up just perfect for Herb Dean not to see. That was God saying, "Hey, it's not your time. Relax." And so I have to just take that light and say, "Okay, you know, you know, it's God. It's not in God's plan for me to be in there yet." And I'm gonna keep working hard. I believe that God always rewards hard workers. So now I'm here, and I'm super pumped because I feel better than ever now.
You've already got to find on some great platforms. Obviously, the Contender Series, LFA, Fury. You also got to find in Brazil. You talked about it a little earlier, but what was it like? Go to a different country, go to the other side of the world, and compete.
Absolutely nuts. Uh, Talk about no rules fighting. No, zero rules whatsoever. I didn't go to weigh-ins. I said, "Hey, I'm about 160 pounds," and they were like, "Cool, you're gonna fight this guy. He's about 160 pounds." So we showed up. We drove like 5 hours, and then I got out of the car and I kind of did like one stretch, and they were like, "All right, you're up." I said, "What?" They said, "Yeah, yeah, you're gonna fight now," and I was like, "Okay, well." I said, "Well, wrap me up or something." And then they didn't even wrap me up. And they threw some gloves at me. I didn't warm up. And I said, "Well, hey, man, I got to change my shorts. Like, I'm in pants right now. I gotta get in my fight shorts at least." And I was like, "Where's the bathroom?" And I was like, "We don't have a bathroom. You got to change right here in front of the crowd." so, so my wife, uh, Ayani, she's in the UFC as well. And she was kind of like, using bags to block it off, and I changed, put my cup on, put my shorts on. I walked in the cage, and then I choked the dude out in like 30 seconds.
That's absolutely crazy. So, obviously getting into the fight this weekend, you have a huge contest taking on Carlton Minus, a guy with a lot of experience. I think this is a really fun one. This is one of my favorite fights this weekend. Overall, what do you think of him as an opponent?
Man, he's good. Like you said, he's made it to the UFC. Um, you're very, very good if you can even touch the UFC. He was in there. He did it. He was in PFL. He's got a lot of fights for me to study. He's a high level fighter. He's got good hands, good takedown defense. He's got good jiu-jitsu. He's good everywhere. So, you know, I just really feel like my game is gonna trump his. I've trained really, really hard for this fight, and I took him as one of my hardest opponents yet. So if you could imagine how I trained, I fought Manuel Torres, and I trained like a maniac for him, and I trained even harder for Carlton. So I'm super excited to show the world my work. Like all the hard work I put in.
Obviously, starting in August, we have another round of the Contender Series that's about to fire up here. Obviously, we have a big task in front of us, but would we be lying if we're not thinking maybe a win puts us back there?
I don't think so. Um, I'll take it. Yes, of course, I'll fight in Contender Series, but I don't believe that I'll get Contender Series. I believe that I'm gonna get a short notice UFC. I've got so many fights. Contender series is more so for like the young and up and comers. And I'm 31. I'll be 15-4. I've been through it. I've fought everybody. I've already been to contender series. Some people get two shots at the contender series or three, but it's because they don't have very many fights and they're all like explosive finishes in the first round. Maybe they're 8-0, 9-0, and so they get contender series after contender series. But with me, I've fought the veterans and I've taken them the distance. I'm not I from what I see is I'm not the contender series type of fighter you want to put on there. I'm a guy that's gonna climb the ranks and break people down slowly but slowly. And yes, I will be going for hunting for the finish for everybody, but they see it more as like young guys that are going there just letting it loose and trying to just either kill or be killed. Put it that way.
At this stage in the career for you, what's the goal?
Man, we're going to go to the UFC and we're gonna start climbing the ranks. And like I said, just previously, I I'm very good at breaking people down. I know how to break their game, their style down. I can really make someone look like a beginner, and I really focus on that. I do a lot of studying on each of my opponents, and I feel like I'm gonna do very, very well in the UFC. When I watch UFC fights, it irritates me now because I'm drooling because these guys look easy to me. They look one dimensional or maybe two dimensional, but I can beat them in so many different areas, and it drives me crazy because I'm like, man, I could be making so much more money right now, but you know you gotta build up. You gotta beat and finish everybody here before you can fight on the world stage.
You alluded to your wife, Ryan Dos Santos, obviously current UFC fighter. I've talked to fighters who have spouses who fight as well. A lot of them tell me it's like the ultimate life hack cheat code. Obviously when you're going through weight cut, when you're going through fight week, she's know what you're going through because she does it too. Do you find that the case?
Yep, but she's a little bit opposite. She goes and she eats whatever she wants, and she just says sorry, and it's okay. To me, it's fine. She really does help me big time with my cuts. She's cooking for me, and so she just signed a contract. So she's gonna fight May 31st uh, in Las Vegas, and that's gonna be a great fight. So she has already had a 5-week camp, and now she's taking a 1 week rest period, and then she's gonna have a 9-week camp right after my fight. So right after my fight, we're back in another camp for her, and then I become the chef. I cook for her. I give the massages, and I take her to all the trainings and stuff. So it's easy. When I tell her, hey, we're not going out this weekend, or we're not going out for about 8 weeks in a row, she's fine with it. She's like, okay, cool. I was like, you need to focus anyways.
For you, do you get more nervous when you fight or when you watch her fight?
Oh man. When she fights, my hair falls out. So yeah, I'm super nervous when she fights. I get I just put pressure on myself, put it that way. I don't get so much too nervous, but with her, man, I'm about to jump the cage and fight for her. I'm going crazy.
What would it be like to join her and fight in the UFC as well?
Man, that would be awesome. It would be really, really cool. I think that we can make a lot of noise. People still haven't seen how she can fight yet. So she's looking really, really good. She's gonna really put on a show for this next fight. You know, us being in the UFC together will be great. I'm about to start and gonna be an HPD, a police officer here in Houston. So police officer and two UFC fighters will be busy.
For you, we talked a little bit about rise of personality and entertainment, and I think we're in a day and age where fans, yeah, they see it as fighting, but I don't really feel a lot of people understand this as an art form. This is more than just going out there and punching a guy and hurting a guy. I mean, it's an art. For you,
Yep.
what does it mean to call yourself a martial artist?
Man, it's just hard to kill, never give up. I'm intelligent in what I do. I don't just go out there and do anything. I have thought about what I'm doing out there for months. It looks, whenever I fight, it looks like I'm doing art. Because you see me breaking someone down, and that's what I think's pretty. Um, it's that right there is what I see a martial artist as. When I start taking weapons away from my opponent one at a time, and then they can't use that anymore, and then they're like, well, why isn't he using his jab? Well, if you knew the game more, and if you were a little bit smarter, you would understand that, I've done certain things to take away his jab. Now I've taken away his kicks. Now I've taken away the space. And there's a bunch of things that lead into being a martial artist that I see. That's how I see a martial artist as. Um, so that's basically it. I like to break people down and melt them.
I think another misconception that some fans get is, they look at this and they look, oh, they're going out there, they're fighting. But what I don't think a lot of people realize, mixed martial artists, yes, you're going out there, you're fighting another guy, sure. But, it's also a fight in life. I think a lot of people get content with this 9-to-5 job, clock in, clock out, complacency, doing the same thing every single day. Mixed martial artists are going out there to fight to change their life. They're trying to fight to be able to live on their own rules, where they get to do what they love. They get to gain the financial freedom from it and really separate themselves from like 99% of the population. For you, is that a big reason why you fight as well?
Man, 100%. That's why I do it. Freedom is the words that you used. It's perfect. Freedom. Me and my wife, we love to travel. I mean, just a couple months ago, we just the the day I told her, I said, "Hey, pack your bags. I think I've decided we're gonna go to Hawaii tomorrow." And she was like, "What?" And I said, "We're going." And she's like, "Well, how long are we staying? Where are we staying?" I was like, "I don't know, but we're going." And she's like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's go." Shoom, we took off. And then when we got back, I was like, man, I was just kind of sitting in bed, and I was like, man, I need another vacation. I need to do something more. I'm bored. And so then I told her, I said, I'm a big skier. I like to ski. And I said, hey, tomorrow we're gonna go to Colorado. And she was like, Colorado, why? And I said, we're gonna go snow skiing. And she said, but I don't know how to ski. I was like, I'm gonna teach you. And she's like, wow. So those types of things is what I get thrills out of. That to me, that's living life. And we were halfway to Colorado, and she's like, hey, where are we staying at? And I was like, oh, I don't know. So then we started looking for Airbnbs, and everything works out perfectly, and it's the most fun we've ever had. We do that a lot, and you can't do that with a normal job, and I really enjoy it, and I do not take it for granted. It's awesome.
Absolutely. All right. Last question, my friend. In a perfect world, what is the outcome on March 23rd when you return to the Fury cage against Carlton Minus?
Finish any way possible. Uh, finish any way possible. Of course. Well, you know what? I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. Win at all costs, finish any way possible. So that's kind of how my mindset is. I'm definitely gonna be looking 100% for the win, but I'm gonna be just a savage for the finish.
There you go. Well, hey, Colin, man, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, brother. I'm really excited to see you duke it out on March 23rd. It's going to be awesome.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for the interview, man. It means a lot.
Absolutely. Well, that's it for us tonight. I'm Carl Prusa. He is Mr. Kolton Englund. You can watch him March 23rd. Going down, Fury, taking on Carlton Minus. Don't miss it.
Let's go.